it started to open my mind to what we're lacking here in Australia. It came full circle because I was very much like, the reason I left Australia is because I didn't see how I fit in to the Australian media.
We would like to acknowledge that we are on stolen Yuggera and Turrbal lands, and as settlers of colour, we reflect upon the damaging legacy of colonisation. Always was, always will be.
My name is Janaki Gerard. My legal Sri Lankan name is Janaki Vishwakarman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I am an actor. I write, I sing, and I like to think within all those performative modes, I'm a storyteller.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go right into that surname thing. What's happening there?
Honestly, it's a bit, I'm in this mode of, I feel like I'm in two mindsets now about my name.
Yeah.
Because I think in 2015, I made the choice to change Vishwakarman to Gerard. And I followed the guidance of teachers, again, white teachers, and just the pattern I was seeing in the industry of a lot of South Asian or anyone of an ethnic minority changing their last name or adapting their first name to sound a bit more Anglo.
Palatable to
Palatable,
the Western ear and eye and mouth?
Yeah, and also I was just noticing it myself, like in audition rooms, not even audition rooms. I remember I was graduating from a program in the States.
Yeah.
And some of the teachers were just not trying to pronounce my last name. Like they would stumble over Janaki and then they would look at the 12 letters of Vishwakarman. It really isn't that hard.
Yeah.
Once you phonetically sound it out. There are no hidden Z's or Q's or anything silent.
That's right. There's way more complicated pronunciations in Anglo names. Right?
Absolutely. And so I think I was just at that point where I was just really impressionable and I took everyone's opinions or their advice to heart. And so I thought, okay, let's make this easier on myself. And so I went through my family tree and I found one of my ancestors had the middle name Gerard.
Okay.
Yeah. And so from there I was like, okay, I'm still keeping this true to my roots. I'm bringing this into still, that's still a part of me. And then I also, the definition of Gerard or the meaning of Gerard is it's a spear. So for me, I thought, okay, a spear is like an arrow. It doesn't waver in its direction until it hits its target.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, this is nice. This feels nice. So I was like, I'm going to use this for now. But now as of recently, I don't know, I think there's been a lot of discussion about identity and your cultural heritage and what that means to you, your roots, how you're connected to land, how you're connected to language, your family. And like, I keep hearing this statement, which is I find quite powerful and it inspires me. When a performer goes on stage, it's not just them as one person. They are one of many that have walked before them. They are their parents are with them, their grandparents, their ancestry is with them.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about that and ruminating on that. And for me, suddenly I'm like, do I want to go back to Vishwakarman? And right now I'm not quite sure yet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. We've caught you at a bit of a moment right at the top here.
Aren't we all at a moment? At certain points in our lives, aren't we always constantly going through transitions?
Yeah.
And questioning ourselves.
So speaking of identity and cultural heritage, we have some of that in common. Can you tell me about your cultural background?
Yeah. So born in Australia, but my parents are Sri Lankan Tamil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's my identity.
And I noticed you address that straight out, say, on your social bio, for example. Have you got it worded there?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
How have you got it worded? Is it like something like Australian raised, something like that?
I think bred in Australia, roots Sri Lankan.
Right.
Yeah, bred. I think I said something along the lines of bred specifically in Australia.
And what informs the need to have that in your bio? Is it kind of like an FAQ response? You're just trying to address the elephant in the room?
It absolutely is an FAQ, 100%, because definitely when, again, first judgment of you as a brown person, right, in Australia.
Yeah.
Some people who are educated and just, I guess, a bit considerate, they will not ask you where you're from immediately. But in a lot of instances, first question off the barrel, where are you from? I'm from here.
Yeah.
I was born in Rockhampton. Like, how much more Australian do you need me to get?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, even the sound of my voice.
Yeah.
I love Vegemite. like there are pictures of me as a toddler just sitting there with like finger in the Vegemite. Like, you know how people do Nutella? I was Vegemite. I was salt all the way. Like, how much more Australian do you need me to get?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
is that feeling of like needing to perform it more? Like,
I don't know, actually. Like, because I feel like I don't. Like, I feel like I'm just trying to be myself more than anything. And so whatever that is if that's Australian, if that's an Australian who is brown, if that's coconut syndrome, I have no idea. Like, I'm just trying to be myself, like the purest, most authentic version of myself.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
In a former iteration of my creativity, I'd written a song FAQ that responds to a lot of casual racism, and one of the lines goes into, missing clues in accent. Like the voice can tell you so much about someone's story, someone's origin.
Exactly.
And yet it's I don't know what the auditory version of colorblind is, but it's
Auditory deaf?
Yeah, like visual deaf. Like you get blinded by the visual.
Yeah.
And the auditory reference is just discarded.
It's completely discarded. Yeah, you're right. And it's just, it just blows my mind because even in this day and age, like, don't get me wrong, I know Australia is still like 50 years behind the rest of the world.
Right.
But it still blows my mind. And like, I don't know about you, but I've been finding it not just, on socials or when you meet people in work situations. I think work situations and like performing arts situations, I feel like people are a bit more just clued in to a certain extent, or they're thinking it, so you don't necessarily know or feel it.
Yes, with the context of working in the arts.
Yeah, the context of working in the arts. But then I think when you enter like dating spheres, that's when it comes out like more than ever. Where are you from? Immediately, and I'm just like, what? I say it in my bio. You can hear.
So you preempted on those platforms as well?
Not even preempted. I think I've just, you know how on those platforms they always say what your ethnic background is or where are you from, and I put it just clearly because it's like it's second nature, right? It's like writing out your birth date for me. It's not even a preemptive thing,
right?
But I've just been noticing the rise of that as well.
Yeah,
and I don't know what is. Again, I don't know if I should be asking what's causing that. Or if it's just, I don't know exactly what it is. Because part of me is like, I understand that there's an element of curiosity. For some people, they're just plain curious.
Yeah.
But then there's another side of me that's like, is that all you're seeing? Is that everything you're seeing? And that gives you, my ethnicity is my whole identity.
Which is something that the dominant ethnicity never has to bear.
Yes.
They can be themselves. They can be this version, that version, that version.
Yeah, exactly.
And kind of run with the anonymity of that.
Exactly.
And not growing up having that questioning.
Yeah, no, that's where I am in questioning it.
Yeah.
But again, not trying to take it too personally because again, that's just a reflection of that person, where they're at in their journey.
100%.
Yeah.
So born in Rockhampton, where was childhood?
Childhood, so up until I was about 6, was in Rockhampton.
Yeah.
And then my parents separated.
Okay.
Then I came down to Brisbane with mum.
Yeah.
And so for a few years, I was going back and forth between Rockhampton and Brisbane. And then eventually dad left Rockhampton as well. And so majority of my childhood and teenage years has been in Brisbane then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So Queensland, like
Through and through.
through and through. I say that
A
with
maroon? Would you go that far?
I would.
Almost sporting the colours today.
This is not maroon.
It's
It's not.
ballpark.
This is pink.
Okay.
This is like dusty pink.
I did say almost.
I don't know. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, there are things I love about this state. Like,
Okay, what's coming now?
Did that sound sarcastic? That was not meant to be sarcastic.
It just sounds like the sort of the premise for something.
Well, I think it's like with all of us, right, in like living and working in Queensland, right, as creatives, as people of colour, there are things we adore about the place that we call home. There are things we love about it, but then we also see the potential for change, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it is. I see the potential that Brisbane has, that Queensland has. But yeah, don't know if I'm a Maroons supporter. I don't know if I can get behind that yet.
And so was childhood like that first, was it 6 years or so? Was that Rocky in the 90s?
Yeah.
And
my God,
what
yeah.
was that like?
To be honest, I honestly can't remember too much of it. Like, I just remember like my friendship group as a child and like my growing up. And for me, again, it would be very different from, I guess, what is the stereotypical growing up in Rockhampton or one of these regional towns, because my dad was a part of the university there.
Okay.
And so I kid you not, growing up, all of my friends were brown.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like
in similar situation, like academic families?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as I know, I think we were the only Sri Lankan family. But all my childhood friends, apart from one, were like from some sort of South Asian background. And that was like my birthday parties.
Right.
And things like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was very cultured, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I literally had one Australian friend in my childhood in Rockhampton who I'm still friends with her today.
Yeah.
And that was because my mum worked at the tax office.
Right.
How Australian can you get?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so that childhood was, very much like, as you would imagine, Barbie dolls, playing pretend.
Yeah, white, blonde Barbie dolls.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I would always opt for, do you remember the Barbie doll Teresa, Barbie's best friend?
I do not, but was that someone of a melanated complexion?
Yes, it was.
There we go.
There was a melanin Barbie doll.
Okay.
And she had like our color complexion and like dark brown hair.
Okay.
And then sometimes I would also see like the black Barbie doll as well. And so I would opt for those ones automatically.
Right.
It's just, again, our eye sees how are we represented? How are we represented? And immediately my eye went for those things. Okay. Not that my parents picked them, I asked for them.
Right. And then transplanting into Brisbane, Meanjin town, and spending the rest of your childhood here, was that a bit of a culture shock?
Not really.
Yeah.
Like, again, maybe when you're, 5, 6 years old,
right?
You don't look for those things, right? You're not aware.
So much change going in your whole life up until that point.
Yeah.
Might as well have been another change.
And that's the thing. You're not aware of it. You're just like, I don't know. I think you're just going with it because you're 6. You don't know any better, right?
Yeah. And which part of town?
Wishart. So south.
I don't know where that is.
Near Garden City.
Okay.
Yeah. So south side of town. And again, not landed, but you know what I mean? That was where mum chose to settle. And I don't know, like, it's the 90s, you're a kid, you're just adjusting to it. I was just kind of going with the flow of it.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know, in regards to like creativity, that definitely came through because of mum, because she, apparently when I was like 3 years old, I told her I wanted to learn to dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she could always see that. So she could always see that I liked playing pretend, and being an only child, I think I got quite good at learning to occupy myself.
Yeah.
And obviously this is the 90s, before Netflix, before like serious gaming or anything like that. So for me, I guess I was encouraged to play imagination, to like, and I liked dressing up. And so my parents at that age for me were quite happy for me to just play. I would take like scarves, I think my grandmother's shawls and things like that.
Yeah.
And just like prance around the living room dressing up and things like that, and singing what's on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So theatrical nature from a young age.
Yeah. It was, Again, I think it was purely out of, just whatever, that need was to express myself, but then also just to entertain myself. Yeah.
So your father in academia and your mother supportive of the early keen interest in wanting to dance, wanting to be creative. Did you have creative careers modeled for you by your family or others around?
No, like nothing so whatsoever. I think what helped was the fact that my mother grew up in an artistic family in Sri Lanka.
Okay, how so?
So my grandfather, so my mother's father, he was a dentist by trade, but he was also a trained opera singer.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Both very involved roles, both of those.
Exactly. And so like he had music streaming through his family as well. Like I think him and his younger sister, they both trained in London as opera singers, and they performed throughout Colombo, from what I understand. And so music was a part of my mother's life. Like the way she would explain it would be they would have dinner parties and people would be coming over, and then my mum's elder siblings would be asked to pull out the guitar. My grandmother would sit at the piano and accompany my grandfather singing. It was very much that dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah, and like they'd all be singing together and everybody would be joining in.
Right.
So there was that encouragement of artistic expression, I guess, or pursuit of the arts. So especially by the time then, when my mum and dad separated, mum started putting me in all these extracurricular activities. Like at one point I was probably playing piano. I was doing drama. I was doing ballet. I was playing tennis. Like there was just a wild array of extracurricular activities, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah.
That I got to try those things.
Right. And was dance the first kind of organized class group activity that you may have gone to?
Maybe dance. And then I think she threw me in drama as well because for some reason she seemed to think I was a little bit shy.
Okay. Right.
I think maybe
Do you think that was ever the case?
I think maybe I was shy in social settings.
Yeah.
And so she was worried that I was going to, my mother was quite like gentle in temperament as well. So I think she was worried that I would be like her. And she could see quite early on in our, our curriculum at school here, from an early age, we're giving talks. We're told we have to give talks. Like I remember having to give like a presentation from grade 1 or 2 on some sort of topic, if you know what I mean.
Right.
You're encouraged to get up and public speak. So I think that's why mum was like, okay, let's just put her in drama as well, just in case. But I think it had the opposite effect.
Right.
So, yeah.
Just took that energy and amplified it.
Absolutely. Again, I'm eternally grateful for her for just wanting me to experience as much as possible. And from that young age. So, yeah. So I feel like that was my childhood very much. Yes, there was school, but it was my extracurricular pursuits and the other things I got to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing like a lot of encouragement from that side. Was there also the pressure to like have a backup or have a more conventional thing or have a conventional career, like be a dentist and an opera singer? Was there that sort of...
I think that definitely came from my father.
Yeah.
So again, academic, he's a physicist.
Okay.
It's so beyond his world, like what performing arts is. So that pressure definitely came from him. But again, in saying that comes from that generation's fear of the unknown, right? Especially immigrating to Australia, right?
Yeah.
Starting from scratch. Like my dad used to tell me stories of how he would clean, whilst he was at university doing his master's, he would be cleaning the floors of Maya at night.
Wow.
To support himself. So, of course, financial security is a huge thing for that generation. And I think when I was younger, I couldn't understand why he didn't support me or see what I was doing as something of value or something that was good or worthy. So there was a lot of, I think as a child, teenager, even coming into adulthood, that relationship has been quite challenging at times because we haven't been able to see eye to eye on what I want to do with my life and the things I want to pursue because they don't match his criteria of financially supporting yourself. But again, the brown version of financially supporting yourself is buy a house.
Yes.
Buy a house first thing up.
Yeah.
And then it's like have a portfolio of shares. It's like have more than enough money for 10 emergencies in your lifetime. Like, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I've been questioning again. It's like, what do I actually need financially? Like, what do we actually need for ourselves to be comfortable? And I don't know about you, but I don't need 10 backup plans in case shit hits the fan. Like, I need things to be comfortable. I need, yes, some savings, but I also want to enjoy my life.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, coming back to that financial security and I think support in the arts, again, because of that generation's conditioning, my father fell into that category and it was very difficult at times. But however, I had my mother. And so she was quite supportive and encouraging. She just kept telling me, I think when she realized that I was taking it quite seriously as a teenager, she would just say, if you want this, work hard.
Yeah.
Just work hard and do it. That's all she would say. And so I followed that.
Right. Do you have a sense of what you might have done or how it might have affected you if you didn't have that support from your mother?
I've thought about that a lot.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wouldn't be the person I am right now, I don't think. I would be a very different person.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think I'd be very happy.
Right.
I don't know if I'd even be here, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I think as a child, I was quite impressionable and I was quite sensitive.
Yeah.
And I needed that support, I think, and that encouragement. And so thank God for my mother. She gave me that. And then from there, like her family saw just saw the person I was becoming. So they supported me as well.
Yeah.
But I think if I didn't have that support, I probably would have, I think, followed what a lot of our peers have done, especially in the South Asian community, gone into academics, gone into academia or something like that, but then quickly realized how unhappy I was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I say I'm not sure what the outcome would have been. Yeah.
Right. And so with all these creative pursuits during childhood and, very, very clear being able to keep yourself amused as a single child and very clear and yet serious kind of interest in creative arts, you ended up studying something else, right?
Yeah. So I went into journalism.
Yeah.
And so for me, definitely that fear started hitting in, I think, when I was a teenager. And again, like I said, I was quite impressionable to people's thoughts and ideas of what I should be doing. And so I was just, I think I was at that stage where I was like, okay, I'm going to do journalism first and I'm going to keep doing acting on the side.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think also what was impacting me was my mother was quite sick at that time. So she had cancer. And so like the focus was shifting, if you know what I mean. Like I couldn't just be a gun-ho teenager about what it is that I want to do and be with my life, because right now I've got a parent who's ill and I'm struggling with my mental health around how to deal with those emotions and how to communicate with her.
Right.
She's ill, and then I've got a father who is putting a lot of pressure on me to just do away with performing arts and do something more serious with my life.
Right.
So
with some of that South Asian and migrant element of, you're looking like with a view to you looking after the family and contributing with financial security that way as well. Would that be part of what's informing that?
I don't know if that was being put on me, like in order to contribute to the household financially. I don't think so yet. I think at that time there was just a lot of uncertainty in regards to my mother's health. So I think, if anything, my relatives just wanted, not that they ever said this directly to my face or anything like that to me. They never cut me off from anything I ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think there was just a lot of uncertainty for everybody within the family unit and the extended family unit about my mother's health at the time. And so that, it kind of felt like, it's almost like there was just like this thick cloud of haze. I'm going to use a visual metaphor to describe this.
Yeah.
It was just like a thick cloud of haze of uncertainty. And it's like I had like deep down, I knew what I wanted for myself. I knew and I could kind of see it, but there was just this thick haze around me and a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear and a lot of doubt. And I just didn't know if I was ever going to be able to get through all of that. So that's what was happening.
Right.
So
And-
that's why journalism, I think,
And
felt
where did
safe.
that journalism venture take you?
So it took me right back into performing arts.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So even whilst I was studying journalism, I was constantly doing acting classes on the side. I was auditioning for commercials because that was the only thing that was available in Queensland at the time. I was doing like small theatre productions. I was dancing. I was doing a bit of singing, things like that. So I was very much still like nourishing that skill set, I guess. And at the same time, throughout my undergrad, I was also emotionally dealing with my own mental health because my mother did pass away in 2019. And so I was very much like going through that process as well.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
person who championed your artistry.
yes, exactly. So I was very much dealing with that and figuring myself out. Again, I'm still figuring myself out.
Yeah.
But
Aren't we all?
aren't we
Lifelong
all?
Thing.
Exactly. And so I think for me, that period was reaffirming that I was like, nah, you do want to do performing arts as a career, or there's more for you to do within this field. So the goal to go and perform or not perform, but like study acting overseas started to come to fruition from there.
Okay. And of course, I have to ask which part of 2019, because that was going to be an interesting time in history around that.
So this wasn't even at 2019. This
Okay.
was like well before. So I finished my undergrad in 2013.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So 2020,
Yeah.
nobody was thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was, 2013. And I went to New York and I went and studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was like, I'd never been to New York City. But again, I think I was just following that narrative of like, go to New York,
Gonna make it.
gonna make it.
Yeah.
Gonna make it in the big city. All
Yeah.
these things have happened to you. It's only meant to like set you up. It's only gonna make you stronger. Rah, rah, rah. You're gonna go, you're gonna learn from the best and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, I had the time of my freaking life. It was fun. It was so fun. And I learned a lot about myself. And then, that springboarded me to go study in the UK. And I think from studying and working in two countries they are the leaders, I guess, in the Western world
Yeah.
of performing arts,
Yeah.
it started to open my mind a lot to what we're lacking here in Australia. And it was, and it came full circle because I was very much like, the reason I left Australia
Yeah.
is because I didn't see how I fit in to the Australian media.
Yeah. Yeah.
Karina Cavallo, she was the first presenter of colour I ever saw in
Right.
Australia.
Okay.
And that was ABC 2013, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
Like I can almost remember the time of year. It was winter. I was studying at Griffith University and
Yeah.
I just remember walking into like the library common area and they had TVs there.
Yeah.
And I stopped dead in my tracks when I saw her sitting behind that desk. I was just like I have goosebumps right now because I can remember the visual. I
Yeah.
was just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
there she is. There is somebody that looks like me and she is on a morning show right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just a profound moment.
A perfect example of how profound representation can be.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And she's Sri Lankan as well.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that was one of the prime reasons because even before then, it's like, who else did I look like in the media? Kathleen from High Five.
Right.
She's Filipina.
Right. Okay.
Like there was no one. So if there's nobody on TV, you can imagine what the theatre scene was like here. It was just zilch.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it was just like, how do I fit in here? How am I going to be accepted here?
And prior to studying and working on your career in New York and London, did you also do any of the Sydney-Melbourne rite of passage, or did you jump straight overseas? You're like, no, I've got a good sense of what's going on here.
I jumped straight overseas.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I find that happening a bit more so now. Like recently, Sai was in here, young DJ, just hit 20.
Yeah.
he's also sort of thinking of that thing of like, oh, do I go to the big cities? Or he's like, no, he's thinking Amsterdam. So like
Yeah.
Brisbane to Amsterdam. So that's interesting that you were making those decisions some time ago as well.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think maybe I was just really young and naive. But again, sometimes that naivety and that naivety literally just, you don't really think about fear or doubt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a protective mechanism in a way.
Exactly. So you
Yeah.
just kind of like, nah, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's like, if I want to go to a big city, why not go to one of the biggest cities
Yeah.
possible and see how they do it there and see what it's all about there. But yeah, like it's funny though, because even I've been thinking about that around 2020. I was like, why didn't I go to Melbourne? I had so many friends in Melbourne, so many friends who had moved down
Yeah.
to study acting in Melbourne.
Right.
But for some reason, I was just in that lens of, I can't see my future here right now. I don't see how this is going to work.
Yeah.
So I was like, get overseas. So yeah.
And so was the New York Times a bit about sort of like getting the degree and the kind of validation in a way? Like what was that kind of period like in contrast to the London time?
Part of it was, yeah, I love that you picked out validation because 100%, I think in reflection, when I look at why I chose to study and go to drama school,
Yeah.
it's because I needed that validation. I wanted that validation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't see another pathway. And maybe it was drilled into me from a young age here that how you become a true actor or the best actor, or you give yourself that opportunity, is by studying full time at one of these great institutes, if you know what I mean. So like Australia, we've got WAPA, we've got NIDA, VCA, we've got the Con here now, and QT. And then overseas, you've got big names like Juilliard, NYU, all those type of places, right? So yeah, it was that validation. And it was like, that program was a 2-year conservatoire. I don't know. I think it comes from the French. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm just being a knob now. So that 2-year training was good and it was great. And yeah, it opened me up to, well, not even opened me up. It just, I learned a lot about the American industry and how the American industry operates in theatre.
Yeah.
And it opened me up to a world of storytelling and plays and work that was being done. I was there when Hamilton was doing its like workshop performance at the Public Theatre, like its first showing.
Whoa.
Yeah, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it was exciting to see just like the broad range of work that was happening and being created.
Yeah.
And how they approached casting.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, this is fascinating, and I felt like I belonged.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you having firsthand casting experiences then?
Yeah. So I was going in for like, at the time, I what did I do? I went in for Aladdin. I know. I went in for like the musical.
Yeah.
I went in for like a few off Broadway shows. Yeah, mainly theatre, because again, my resume from Australia was like theatre. Yeah, so I was mainly getting theatre. And so one of the jobs I did book there was a children's musical that was set in the Caribbean.
Right.
Yeah, so the best way to describe it was like The Wiggles, but set in the Caribbean, and it was interactive.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was super fun. Like,
Yeah.
it was super fun. And again, they wanted me because obviously I'm good at my job, but also like I look the part, I guess, if you know what I mean. Like I look like I fit into that world. And that was a lot of fun to do. It was so much fun to do children's theatre and do that and have that experience.
Right.
And that team were awesome. So, yeah.
When you're in these big global cities, do you find that you were received as an Australian?
No. No, it was only once they started talking to me, or when I said, oh, I'm Australian, because obviously my voice is so distinctly different to the American accent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's not quite English.
Yeah.
Like most people would, like on first glance, people would speak to me in Spanish.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they would speak to you in Spanish easily. Like that's the
Okay.
thing. People would just assume you're like of the Latin American diaspora. And like in saying that though, I've met like people from Puerto Rico and like just their features, their skin color. And I'm just like, we look so similar. It's
Oh, right.
wild.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why people would speak to me in Spanish. And I was like, no hablo español, por favor. Do you speak English? And they'd just be really surprised. And then, they'd hear this English sounding, but not quite English sounding accent. And for them, Australia is on the other side of the world. They're
Right.
like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you a Succession fan?
I just started watching it.
Just started watching?
I just started
So you're
watching.
in one of the earlier seasons?
I'm in the first season.
Okay,
Like,
cool.
yeah.
Great.
Why do you ask?
I am just thinking of Sarah Snook, and I did not know that she was an Australian actor until I saw some behind the scenes thing. And then particularly her and her partner, like Australian and British, both doing like just completely convincing American accents. It's just...
It's mind-blowing, right? It's
yeah.
mind-blowing. Hopefully I can pull that. No, I will pull that off for proof.
Yeah.
So, because we have to do American accents for this play coming up.
Yeah.
Chicago American specifically.
Okay.
Midwestern.
Okay.
But yeah, no. I think Australians have an easier time, though, doing accent work. Just because of...
Because we get showered in American content?
Yes. Yes. One of my teachers explained this to me, and I'm gonna butcher his explanation,
Okay.
but I'm gonna do my best.
Let's give it a hot go.
The way I'm already doing such a great job of this.
Yeah.
The way we pronounce words already, the way we approach vowels and consonants, it opens us up, or we are in a unique, like, I guess. Oh my God, I'm really stuffing this up.
Is it to do with the mouth sounds?
It's the way we pronounce like certain vowels and consonants. It's quite, I guess, it's opened us up to pronounce the British sounds with ease, because again, obviously, we do inherit part of our accent from the Brits.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, because it's not just those sounds we can make, because we kind of almost flatten our sounds a bit, and we do talk a little bit not even a little bit, we do talk quite nasally.
Yeah.
We can still approach the American sounds.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's like we're already halfway there to a certain extent.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense. But he explained it in a much more eloquent way, that we have an advantage. We and the Scots have an advantage.
Oh, specifically. Okay.
Yeah, the way we approach sounds and the vowels and the consonants. So he said to me and one of my friends, because we would go in and get extra lessons after class, and she was Scottish, and he was like, you guys have this advantage. And he's like, and I've seen the most growth in students that are Australian and that are Scottish when they're doing American dialects.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's like, it's quite extraordinary. So I was
Right.
like, okay. So, hence why some of our Australian actors are so damn good.
Yeah, right. And so if we were to make a somewhat brutal summary of the time in New York, to be both the first taste of a big international city, but also validation.
Yeah.
What was the theme in London?
London, I wanted to do my master's, because for me at the time, I really wanted to stay in America, but it was really challenging because of visas. And so what I realized upon living there was you needed a green card.
Yes.
Yeah, you need the green card.
Which is via a lottery process?
There's a lottery process.
There's one
There
angle.
is.
Okay.
I'm sure there are some other avenues to it as well.
Yeah.
But specifically with performing arts, at that time, the only thing that was available to you was an optional training visa. If you studied in America, they'll give you an optional training visa for 1 year.
Yeah.
Then there was also a creative visa. I can't remember the acronym for it, but it was just basically a creative visa that you had to apply for.
Yeah.
And I think it gave you 3 years, but there were limitations even then on that visa, especially for performing arts. So people who were ahead of us, who were elder than us, who had gone onto that creative visa, they basically would go in for auditions at off-Broadway theatres or even film and television auditions, and they'd be like, you're great. Okay, so green card? And they'd be like, no, I'm on this creative visa. And they couldn't hire them because of their visa status. They had to be on a green card.
Right.
Yeah, so it was like a ceiling almost for international talent.
Oh, you couldn't break through
until you got this green card. And so, like, I think once upon a time in America, you could get sponsored by companies or by your agent or something like that. But post 9/11, the whole immigration system really went through a big reform.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it felt like there was this glass ceiling. And so I was like, oh, how challenging is this going to be for me to stay on? Like, is it worth the energy? I'm not sure. So that's why when I started looking at master's programs in the United Kingdom as well, I suddenly saw a clearer path as an
Right.
Australian.
Yeah, okay.
Which might be, slightly easier, God forbid, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, let's give this a try. And so I did. And so that's what ended up happening. And I really enjoyed my time in England. So, yeah.
And how much time was that?
That was 3.5 years in England.
Okay.
So I was there in London. I went to East 15, did my master's, and then I started working again mainly as a theatre actor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And booking, I was going in for fairly big auditions again, which was amazing. So things like Hamilton, Lion King, a few off West End shows.
Oh, yeah. Just some small upcoming names.
Just
yeah.
small. But again, I was really, it's with those big audition rooms, you start learning about yourself more than anything, like how you react to pressure, how you react to stress.
Right, right.
How stress affects your body, things like that. And I was suddenly realizing, oh my God, this is horrendous. And I think that's one thing as a performer, especially any sort of creative career, right? It's like, how do you deal with the pressure? Because it literally affects all of us in different ways.
Right, right.
So that was a huge learning curve as well.
Okay. And for the person who's for a non-actor, non-drama person, such as myself, who is not familiar with the auditioning process, it seems quite brutal. Can you give me a bit of an introduction into that world?
We can start with statistics.
Okay.
So an audition, so an actor will go for an audition, maybe 100 auditions.
Yeah.
In the span of 6 months.
Uh-huh.
You're likely to book 10.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like a 10% employment rate.
Wow.
Basically. So it's like you have to treat auditioning like it's the job. It's a chance to just be seen, I guess, by this theatre director, this casting team, whatsoever, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's really a lesson in detachment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is brutal.
Right.
And is everyone goes through their own process, if you know what I mean of that. And so even me, I still struggle with it because there are times you really want the role. There are times you really resonate with the play or the script.
Yep.
And you just really want it. But that's part of it, I think. Like you need to want it that bad to be like, to put in that work, that time, that dedication, that love for it, because that's what they see at the other end.
Yeah. Yeah.
The team. And then you have to let it go. You have to be like, if it's meant for me, it will not miss me. And that statement alone has brought me a lot of peace.
Right. Right.
Tears as well, but peace.
Because you have to treat it like a job, but it's inherently not paid, right?
Yes, it's not paid. And there's a lot of conversation about that.
Yeah.
Because the amount of auditions that come across your desk, on average, I think, especially last year, I was getting maybe 1 or 2 a week. They would mainly be commercial auditions.
Yep.
But still, the frequency of self-taping and auditioning. So, the practice now is you don't have to go into the casting director's office.
Yeah.
Now you can self-tape at home, with your backdrop, with a wall, your smartphone.
Yep.
Yeah, your own lights, things like that.
Yep.
You just do it at home now. So there is more flexibility, excuse me. But in saying that, though, we all have other things going on too.
Yeah.
Some weeks are more hectic than others. You still have to financially support yourself as a creative.
Yeah.
Which can be challenging at times, right? And so it's like, how do you juggle this?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're not, especially when you're not earning your money from your creative practice and you're having to look at other avenues and things like that. How do you do that? I'm still figuring it out too.
Right. Does journalism play a role in that?
Journalism has come back into it. So everything comes full circle.
Yeah.
So I did a journalism internship when I came back to Australia. And And it's funny because I think once I got that first internship, I was just like, why didn't I do this sooner? And again, I think we're really good at being our own worst enemy, right?
Getting in our own way.
Getting in our own way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because I had gone straight from journalism into acting and I did no internships at that time, I was just like, I don't have the credits, I don't have the experience. Then I just looked at my resume and I just found everything wrong with my story and I just like ate away at my confidence in that sense.
Yeah.
Instead, I couldn't flip it and see the positives. Like the way I speak to myself, I would never speak that way to my friends or my loved ones. I would never do that. Like if a friend wanted to jump careers, I'd be like, okay, how can we make you desirable to this industry? What do we need to do? What are the pros that you bring to this?
Yeah.
I just tore myself to shreds, like internally, of saying that, nope, I can't do this. Nope, I can't do this. Nope, I can't do this. And then I think finally for this internship, I was just in the right environment. I had two friends who had both worked in journalism fields. And so they just talked me up. They just encouraged me. They're like, no, just try, just go for it. And so even through the second round interviews, when they're asking you to do a Vox recording and things like that, they were like, try it, say it like this, say it a bit like this, maybe say it a bit quicker, things like that. They would just like, they were my hype women. 100%.
Right.
Shout out to Daniela and Sam.
Yeah.
They just, literally held me. And I then got offered the internship.
Okay.
And so it was that moment of, wow, we really get in our own way and we really limit ourselves so much.
And when was all this happening?
This happened last year.
Oh, right.
Quite
okay.
literally.
Recent.
Yeah, it
okay.
was so recent. So I started that internship in September of last year. And then once I was there, I was like, oh, yeah, I can do this if I put the work in. Oh, yeah, I can totally do this. So it's wild. And so now I still work casually for 4BC.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, mainly as a producing assistant. And again, there are opportunities there to be full-time, but right now that's the struggle that's something I'm trying to figure out for myself. Because
at what cost is full-time? What does that mean to the rest of the things I do?
Exactly. Because don't get me wrong, I love me some financial security.
Yeah.
I love money. Money's fun. I adore money. But again, it's like, how much do I need?
Yeah.
And again, time is money.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you take on a full-time gig, and that's someone buying a whole chunk of your time, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like, what do I need for myself? Not what society's telling me.
Right.
And that's one problem I've noticed, like in media, and I feel like you may have come across this yourself, right? It's like there's a lot of full-time positions. There's a lot of full-time positions.
Yep.
And then there's zero part-time positions, unless you are lucky enough and they craft you something for you.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Cook something up.
Cook something up for you. And then there's a handful of casual roles.
Yeah.
But again, with casual work, as you know as well,
Absolutely.
you just don't know when it's going to hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an interesting journey.
And
Yeah.
was this was the journalism side and broadcast producing side, was that something that helped enable, like recently you were mentioning that you were taking a bit of time off from I presume acting or creative pursuits. So is this some sort of thing that helps enable you to be able to go, okay, I'm just going to take a break from all these auditions and all these things for a minute?
Honestly, yes and no. So with me, definitely the casual work helps coming in because, again, it just keeps any form of money coming in, even small amounts, is helpful, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's good. I think for me, my situation is a little bit different because when my mother passed away, I was her only benefactor. So I've kept that inheritance very much, you know, in a term deposit, in shares, that kind of thing. For my future, part of it I spent on my training when I was overseas and living expenses. Okay. And so when I decided that I was, when I realized end of last year how burnt out I was and how unhappy I was, like when I was just talked to like one of my best friends who knows me so well, she was the one who was very much like, I think you need to step back from everything you're doing right now,
Right.
and take that time off. And she was the one who was like, I don't think you should even work. And she's like, you can go into this money. It's not shameful to go into it, if you know what I mean. Like, yes, I know you're saving that there because you're still deciding what your future looks like, but you're allowed to go into this. And the beauty about money is you can always earn more money. Like, don't get me wrong, like you can earn a few thousand over a couple of months.
Yeah.
You can do that, if you know what I mean. And so that's really what it was. That at the end of the day, I was like, I can take a few $1,000s here and I can prioritize my mental health and my well-being right now because it is not in a good place. It's not in a strong place, and it's also not in a loving place right now. So that's what has helped me take that time. And again, I am so thankful and grateful that I have that, because I know a lot of other people in this industry who are struggling with their health and don't have that safety blanket. So right now, I'm just trying to do my best. How do I say this? I'm trying my best to take care of myself right now so I can set a stronger foundation going forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to say 2 words that are familiar to you, and they're a bit of a prompt, and then you can explain or go from there.
Okay, so just shout the first thing that comes to mind.
Hello, possums.
I'm glad we're talking about Kathy. This is great. Kathy's wonderful. Kathy is a character that came about. She came about in 2020. Like, a lot of magical things came about in 2020.
Okay.
Magical and heartbreaking things that came about in 2020.
Right. Yeah.
So Kathy first appeared in the world in Tales of the Colony, which was a production with voices of colour.
Okay.
And then she just remained dormant for a while because they didn't know what to do with her.
Right.
Quite literally.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, this year, because I took that time off again, creating space and putting some love back into myself, suddenly ideas started booming for Kathy again.
Yeah.
And just wanting to play. And so I think because, when you approach things from a sense of, I'm just playing, I'm going to throw some paint at the wall and see what happens, that's when the most unique, fun, weird things come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And when you have been looking after yourself, so you have a moment to kind of take a breath and have that reflection.
Exactly. Yeah. So Kathy's come out, and I still want to play with her and do more things with her. Still trying to figure out what her identity is as an entity in this world.
Yeah.
But she's been coming out, which has been really nice. And I think there's something really joyful about putting on a character.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you do that too. You put on your own characters or archetypes, if you know what I mean, to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I guess, there's a few like duo skits that I've done, and I guess one person is playing the manager and employee kind of characters. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have their different energies that they bring. They have their different quirks, if you know what I mean, that they bring. And I think there's something really... it just feels like you're playing pretend as a kid, if you know what I mean? And that's like, it's just joyful to do that.
Yeah. It is really nice to explore different things through the lens of a character.
Exactly. So I'm still wanting to play with her. And again, I think I've just told myself that when an idea lands, follow it. Don't try to force yourself to, make a video every month or every week or whatever. Just when an idea lands and then suddenly you're like, I think Kathy should explore this. But so that's how Kathy has come about.
Right. And so when, I guess you develop characters with this background in theatre and drama, and then when you're progressing into your career and doing auditions, it seems like there's almost this kind of fork in the road of theatre and film. Can you tell me about these 2 different avenues for acting and, how we might think of them as different?
How we think of them as different?
Yeah, or like from an actor's perspective.
I guess with theatre, or at least this is how I look at it, theatre, you are telling the story to the masses.
Okay.
Like, so
Yeah.
imagine like Sydney Opera House. You know what I mean? How many seats is in that theatre? A lot.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
A few thousand. You're playing to the masses. Like
Right.
that is the audience, and you have to tell the story to them,
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
So it's not just your voice, it's your entire body and being
Okay.
on stage, if you know what I mean.
Right.
In saying that, it doesn't mean that the work you're doing is what's the word I'm looking for? It's still grounded in a truthful place. You're still telling the truth. You're still portraying truth in an imaginary circumstance, but it's just the lens is bigger. So you
Okay.
just have to play things up a little bit.
The lens is bigger. That's a really interesting reflection. Yeah.
Yeah. And then with film, your lens obviously it's completely different. It's like the lens is here, right, for us. So again, if I go and do this, that is just way too much,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
It just kind of like takes the audience out.
Right.
It's the opposite in a way. We want to draw people in. So there's more, there's more subtlety. There's still energy there.
Yeah.
There's still 100% energy there, but it's just a bit more contained.
Okay.
So it's very much more about seeing how you can keep yourself in this engaged, grounded place, but you can be a bit more subtle about it. You know, you can really be a bit more specific with your movement, specific with your eye line
Right.
to convey thoughts, intentions, anything like that.
Right.
Even just now, how I'm trying to like keep my body a bit more grounded and my eyes are just a bit more focused on you. If I'm taking a thought down here, coming back to you,
Right.
that draws people in, those subtleties.
Okay.
It's really interesting and it's fascinating.
Right. Right. Okay. I think I can reflect on that
I
from.
don't know if that helped.
No, absolutely. It did, and you like pulled us into a moment there. So it was very interesting to see how that works. And I think like hearing that from you helps me reflect now on my kind of moments with stage theatrics versus like shooting myself, doing these little skits and things. Like
Yeah.
I think I have, without being too conscious of it, have learnt some of that.
I think you have too.
Kind of dynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also from being in some like B grade messing around kind of Sri Lankan productions and seeing the results of those, going,
That didn't work.
yeah,
But this did.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I think you have already because I can, in your skits as well, because of your natural energy, I think you do draw us in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you are quite specific and subtle because I feel like those techniques, those tools, that really helps with like making sketches, elements of filmmaking, things
Okay.
like that, being really specific with what is going on with this character.
Right.
What do they want from this situation?
Yeah.
But also, what do you want the audience? How do you want the audience to react?
yeah. Okay, I had a probably like my longest like theater and comedy influence growing up was a friend, Matt Woodham, and he was always in drama and theater. I was never in these. I was an introvert. I was down like I had to go through this long process of like coming from being an introverted drummer at the back of the stage to being this performer that I could flick on, but I'm still essentially an introvert. And he's not really in social media spaces, but when I started doing some of those duo creative manager kind of skits, I would send some his way, and he had a really interesting comment in one of the second ones because suddenly the guy who was playing the authoritarian manager, suddenly it's Casual Friday and he's on the beers and he's just like flipped into this sort of bogan character, and he was sort of picking at the continuity there. He was like, oh, like now the creative is trying to keep the schedule and the manager is like, oh, it doesn't quite follow the continuity
I
there.
remember
So
that sketch and I was like, this is so accurate. I deeply resonate with this. My brain resonates with this. It's like the highly logical part of me that wants to time manage everything down.
Yeah.
Gets this, but then the creative is like, but I don't want to. I don't like schedules. I want to dance first thing in the morning.
Which is such a nice thing to explore, not only in characters, but in two characters.
Yeah.
Because that side of us can be there, both from when I work with artists and send them reminder emails to send them their bio and photos, and but I've also like having been there as the artist as well. But we have previously toyed with the idea of doing like playing with some comic duo things, and that, I don't know if I told you this when we said that, but that idea is terrifying because I've not come through these drama spaces. Like comedy stuff that I've worked on has been either a solo performance or solo skits where I'm playing multiple characters. Is that just something that's been natural for you because you've always been with people?
Yeah. I think it has been natural because even like going back to like primary school drama, it's always a group of kids.
Yeah.
Or if you're in partner scenes, because again, it's a scene usually in drama settings where it's like you're acting opposite a person. And even so, I even beg to differ with your experiences because you have a scene partner. Your scene partner is your camera. Your scene partner is the audience.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's just like you always, and even when you've been playing multiple characters,
Yeah.
like, yes, it's still you, but you're still playing opposite yourself in a way. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
because that's the thing. I think with any form of storytelling, right? It's like there's always going to be some form of relationship that we're exploring, even if it is just one person, even if the story is one person sitting in their room and the camera's on them, they still have a relationship with the camera or
Right.
with the audience in a way.
Right.
So that's my point, like how I look at it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Because, I don't know. I think there's always going to be some form of relationship you're going to play with.
And even if you're doing something like where you're not breaking the fourth wall and looking down the lens, do you still have this sense of like treating the camera as a person or a character or like?
I like to.
Yeah.
I like to because it takes me out of my own head
Okay.
and puts the focus on somebody else, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, because especially in film, right? And again, I'm much more comfortable at home with theatre. I'm getting better with film. So for me at the moment, making the camera into a person or into, if I can imagine, if I'm looking down the barrel of the camera, say, for one specific scene or for a story, like I'm imagining my scene partner there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
imagining my scene partner's eyes. If it's not directly down the barrel of the camera, and if, say, my scene partner is off camera,
Yeah.
I'm still, in a way, just trying to make this a safe space for me. My scene partner is right there, and maybe the camera is an extension of them. But again, my energy is still focused to the person that is my scene partner,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, I'm still workshopping these ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it makes sense. And yeah, whatever kind of ideas that help make it work for you. And I can already see some things firing off in my head from what you've been saying. So several creative identities: writer, actor, singer, but producer, journalist, but also dancer.
Yes.
And dance is re-entering your life, it seems.
Yes, it has
Tell me
been.
about that.
We're going to call it the will of the universe and maybe divine timing. So I did dancing as a child on and off, multiple styles. And then when I went to America, I think I put dancing more to the side. And because I was just focusing my energy on other things and I just needed a bit of a break. And I think especially when I was auditioning for musical theatre in the UK, it started to become quite stressful. Like I felt like I was training specifically to get the job. I wasn't training anymore because I loved to move. So I needed to take a bit of that break as well. And then I think, this beginning of this year, end of last year, even last year I was feeling it. I was missing that way of moving to music, if you know what I mean, and to dance, to express myself like that. I was still exercising and moving in other ways. Like I love my yoga, I love Pilates, I love swimming, things like that.
Yeah.
But I was missing that. So I found myself encouraging my girlfriends, let's go out, let's go have a dance, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we were doing that a lot, which was fun, but it wasn't enough. And so suddenly I was like, okay, we miss dancing. Let's get back into it beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Made that a priority because I was like, this is for me. This is just for me. It doesn't have to be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, of course, will of the universe, the next thing I know, I'm in a theatre production
Yeah.
where I'm dancing and acting.
Yeah. And is that Item?
That is Item,
Yeah.
yes. So that's Item is from the brainchild of Drea Lamb, who's the head of Dance Masala.
Uh-huh.
And so that production is going up at Metro Arts. And I guess the best way to describe this production is it's a love letter, but also a cease and desist letter to Bollywood.
Oof. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So very much told through dance, different styles of dance within Bollywood. But also there's a lot of comedy, there's characters. It's a lot of fun.
Right.
We're hoping fun and heartbreaking.
Okay. Right. And at what stage is that work at the moment?
We've finished the creative development on that. But again, I think Drea has been working on this for about 4 years now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did an iteration of it last year for the Metro team. And so this year we did a 2-week creative development, and then we're still working on the work slowly and the choreography and the scenes and things. But then we'll go into rehearsals August. July. End of July. End of July and August. And then we'll have the performances at Metro in August.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so that's coming up. What else are you working on at the moment?
Proof at Ad Astra.
Okay.
So
what is Ad Astra?
Ad Astra is an independent theatre company here in Brisbane. They've been doing some pretty cool work. I feel like, again, they're not paying me for promoting them. So I gain nothing from this. I'm just saying this to pat everyone's back who is involved in independent theatre in Queensland, because it is booming.
Right.
They're making some amazing work.
Right.
Amazing work is coming out of independent theatre. The Matilda Awards at the beginning of this year, literally proved that. There were so many independent theatre productions that were nominated across the board and that won.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty exciting. It's exciting times in that regard. And I feel like that's a sign of the future. What's to come. Independent theatre is on the rise. So Ad Astra, independent theatre, they're in Fortitude Valley, and their setup is a black box theatre.
Okay.
And black box is very intimate. It's very intimate theatre. I think it seats,
No tiered seating, or
it is slightly
small amount?
It is slightly tiered, but it's their theatre I think seats 45.
Okay, right.
And it's completely contained.
Yeah.
Don't worry, there's air conditioning. There's air conditioning, and they give you snacks at the beginning, and there's an intermission.
Right.
But it is very intimate. So it's almost I guess it would be where almost television or film meets theatre, because it's so intimate and you're right there. Even the distance we're sitting right now, I think, if I can remember the theatre, it's the front row is here where I am.
Yeah.
And then it's the stage is right there.
Right.
You're on level with the actor.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is really lovely. And it's a great, I'm going to say boot camp as well as playground for performing it for creatives.
Okay.
To work in those spaces.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So that play Proof is by David Auburn. And again, everything comes full circle. I first studied that play when I was in New York. Yeah.
Okay.
So only reason I knew about it is because I studied it.
Right.
And then I heard that, and then I found the audition notice beginning of this year, and I happened to know the director. So I was like, yep, I'm going to audition. I'm going to do this. And sure enough, this show, it had been a while since anything had really resonated with me. And the story is about a young woman who has been caring for her father, who has been quite unwell for the last few years, and he's a maths genius. And basically, throughout the action of the play, she is dealing with the loss of her father, but also the fact that she's almost lost her identity because she has been caring for him for a number of years.
Right.
And she's been dealing with her deteriorating mental health.
Yeah.
And also her lost dreams of being a mathematician and studying.
Right.
So there's a lot of things here. It's mental health, grief, like loss of a parent, loss of identity, like loss of self-worth in that way. So it is, I'm going to call it a dramedy because my God, are the supporting cast members hilarious. Like the things they bring to the table already in rehearsals are freaking funny.
Yeah.
And it's set in Chicago and it's set, I think it's set end of the 90s.
Okay.
So it's really interesting. And so another thing it explores is when a woman accuses a person of something, or when there's a situation where it comes down to a man and a woman, how our lens, what does our lens do when we look at women? Because we always view women with a sense of judgment.
Right.
So it's very much, it definitely does go into that world of Me Too, if you know what I mean, and the believability of women, and especially women's health.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So specifically things around the word of like, when, you know, these buzzwords that we have we always typically call women paranoid, crazy, hysterical.
Hysteria was the name of a session that I was listening to on a podcast from the All About Women Festival at Sydney Opera House.
And I need to listen to this.
Yeah, great session, and touching on things of like, tell me what your pain level is from 1 to 10. It's like, she says 8. Oh, but she's a woman, so let's dial that down a few.
Which is actually the opposite, right?
Yeah.
It's 100% that we know now it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Women say it's a 5, but actually, because we've gotten so good at coping, it's a 7.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Okay. I need to get that off you. That sounds really interesting. This might be my some homework to go into the play.
Yeah. Particularly when you hit hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting play, and I think obviously there are elements where I'm like, oh, this reminds me of me and my dad, especially the mathematician aspect of it.
Okay. Yeah. With the academia. Yeah.
Academia, that lifestyle, if you know what I mean. But then at the same time, it's a privilege to be able to bring in the fact that I'm a South Asian woman playing this character, and to bring in that lens.
Okay.
Because it adds so.
That's not written into the story.
No, it's not. So like, I don't think the ethnicity of the family is ever mentioned, if you know what I mean. But obviously, the first iteration of it on Broadway, it was a white family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mary Louise Parker played Catherine, who I'm playing.
Okay.
Again, I love her. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm really thankful that the director, Caitlin Hill, wanted a POC woman playing Catherine. She wanted to see that story and journey, because she's like, she even said this to me. She's like, we could see another white woman struggling with her self-worth and her intellect and her health, and dealing with this vacuum effect of everything going wrong or everything going right in her world. But let's see a POC woman deal with this. And so it's again, I'm so thankful that she wanted to see this story. She wanted to give a platform so we could tell this story from a different lens, which is really nice.
Well, we have to keep an eye out for these upcoming productions, particularly your return, or the moment that you dive back into the dance world this August. But I want to thank you for coming on today. Thank you very much, Janaki, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.